And you know what? I'm glad that you admitted that, you're not super in-depth in the minutia of this match because I'm not as well. And I would love to be able to find out some of this stuff with you as we go through this. And we see here the full null room package besides the chest piece from Dorinthea Ironsong.
Yeah, leaning on that Feyendel Spring Tunic to go ahead and try and fight through the disruption that Icelander can provide. And I see a beautiful Dorinthea there on Ryan's side. Look, Dorinthea players don't mess around. They are fanatical about their hero, and it wouldn't surprise me if Ryan Gentile does know this matchup very well, knows his way around to Dorinthea.
You gotta love the white bordered Dawn Blade as well.
Too cool. I love it. That white bordered's the new black bordered.
I'll just agree with you, but sure.
Going to start off with some Ether Ice Veins here. It is going to be a fusion, so that is going to threaten to take a card from Ryan Gentile's hand. And already we're seeing Icelander do her thing. This is what she's meant to do. She threatens you with damage, tries to make you discard cards, tries to put Frostbites under your control so everything costs more, and Ryan has to decide how much of this gets prevented by Null Rune. Unfortunately, that on-hit is going to come through because it's representing 4 here. So in that case, Ryan says, you know what, I'll just take it. And that is going to create this on-hit trigger from Ether Ice Vein. That's a yellow Ether Ice Vein, so it is representing 4 damage, not the blue we see on screen. Just going to go ahead and discard a Sharpened Steel. And now Alexander Vore going to do the classic Icelander play. Little Waning Moon for you. 2 damage.
And we do have, I think, perfect information here as well. I think there's an Arctic Incarceration is left over in his hand, and it was a blue one as well. So very great opening turn here for Alexander Vore. Gets a ton of damage through, gets to set up a blue in his arsenal, which, if you've been following the limited rounds here, this is what Icelander wants to do.
Yeah, get that blue in arsenal, get ready to disrupt your opponent.
It's an ice card, which is really good. And look, here's the thing. A lot of times you don't always have the best spots to be playing blues out of your arsenal as Icelander to really affect your opponent with those Frostbites, but you're going to get priority a lot against Dorinthea.
You absolutely will. Dory's whole goal is to attack multiple times per turn. So even if you're not able to influence that first Dawnblade attack, as we see Ryan picking up that Dawnblade, getting ready to move that forward. No chance to Frostbite yet. But Alexander knows that that's not what Ryan's game plan is based upon. Wants there to be multiple attacks, and is going to have to work to get those through all these Frostbites that Alexander's going to present. And there you see that card I mentioned from Classic Battles. It's Glistening Steel Blade pitched for Ryan Gentile, but that's one of the big upgrades for Dory. So much better at getting counters on Dawnblade these days.
And so here we have the Frostbite is going to be created by Alexander Vore, playing a card from this, and you're going to see this happen a lot. A lot of, can I do this? Like, there's going to be a lot of priority passing back and forth between these two players, more than you're normally going to see in a game, because Ryan also has stuff that he can do in response to the making of the Frostbites. He can be like, well, look, I'm gonna react here as well, maybe pump up my Dawnblade a little bit. That way I don't have to pay extra for my stuff. But this is why you heard us kind of mention earlier that the blues are going to get added into the deck a lot to pay for these Frostbites, and then the big turns of Arcanic damage. He's going to be able to have extra resources left over for as well there, because you made such a good, astute point that's so important here is Dorinthea is really, really resource hungry. She wants to be able to use so much of it.
Yeah, and look, that ends the turn with 2 cards in hand. That's it. That's all Ryan was able to do on this particular turn. And maybe some of that was by design. You certainly do want to have your Arcane Barrier at the ready. That requires you passing and moving to your arsenal. So it's an interesting consideration. I have to think that Alexander, being such a wizard master, knows how to find the points to appropriately pressure Ryan. And here you see some more pressure. It looks like Ice Eternal is going to be the play that is going to go ahead and get fused, create Frostbites on Ryan's side. Of course, that Icelander specialization, 4 Frostbites headed the way of Ryan.
Yeah, this is also going to send over some damage as well since it was fused. And I don't know if this could have started out better for Alexander Vore. He's getting a lot of damage through. These Frostbites are having huge impact on the Dorinthea player. It seems like this could be like one of your scarier matchups with Dorinthea just because of all the things the Icelander can do at instant speed.
I think so. I think especially, I could see if an Icelander player doesn't really know the matchup, is unprepared, doesn't exploit you in the right timings, doesn't pressure you at the right points in your chain. Alexander, though, just such a great practice player. I don't think you're going to get that advantage against him.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep up with everything that's going on here. It does look like there is going to be a pitch of 2 cards here.
Yeah, Arcane Barrier, I believe, for that Waning Moon activation. So we see Ryan taking a defensive posture thus far. And I think that's interesting. Like, there's something to be said of just like, all I do is attack with Dawnblade once a turn and Arcane Barrier everything you do.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like, I've got to agree with you there, but going into this turn with 4 Frostbites, I think you're priced in almost at that point. Like, I have to make the decision. I'm going to do one thing probably on my turn, or I can prevent all this damage.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we already saw Ryan look to move to end of turn, and we're seeing Alexander Vore react. Is going to go ahead and deploy what looks like a little glare on that one. Can't quite make it out.
It's a cold snap. It's a blue cold snap. It's going to draw a card when it's played from your arsenal. But also, you get to freeze the card in Ryan's arsenal here, which is not a small thing either. So it's kind of like he's taxing him every turn. You're going to have to either pay extra, your arsenal is frozen, you're not going to get to do your full thing. And if anyone's played against Dorinthea in the past, I've played against her in Blitz quite a bit, not as much as CC. Generally, Dorinthea is the kind of player, it's kind of a deck that, it's a lot like FAB. It's not like Briar. They just want to show you their hand. They just want to play all their cards.
Ideally. And they accumulate advantages over turns with Dawnblade getting those counters and just getting larger and larger as time goes on. But that's going to be so hard.
At this rate, he might not get a counter on Dawnblade the way this game is going.
I think that is a very real possibility. And that is, you said Iyslander taxes you. I think that is a very, very good explanation of what it's like to play against Iyslander. You just never get to do anything freely. And now you see Waning Moon going to be activated. I am pretty positive we're going to see some Arcane Barrier here. Looks like a yellow, able to prevent 2 of that. Going to leak through 1 damage.
It's a lot like Lexi was towards the end of the Starvo meta when it was trying to slow down Starvo. Yep. When Ice Lexi's trying to slow down Viscera and stuff like that. You're going to see some of those effects here for sure.
Yeah, and the hits keep coming for Alexander. When we move to Alexander's turn, I think we're going to see a Channel Lake Frigid too, and just further problems.
Oh, wait a minute.
No, we're not going to wait that long. We are going to activate Storm Striders. Just going to let Alexander play his next effect. It's a freezing point. That being fused in conjunction with those Frostbites is going to represent a massive amount of damage headed the way of Ryan Gentile. Freezing point, a huge, huge threat once you've accumulated those Frostbites.
Yeah, what this one's going to do is going to do 5 arcane damage to a hero, but if it was fused, it deals X instead, where X is 5 plus the Frostbite. You see 5 more over there, so you see Ryan all the way down to 21 this turn after using Arcane Barrier this turn. Yeah. This is a nightmare scenario for Ryan. Now it's going to be a pass again. That Arsenal's going to unfreeze. He's going to draw up to 4 cards. We're going to go back over to Alexander Vore, but Vore distinctly in the driver's
seat. I mean, we know what's in Vore's arsenal here. It's Channel Lake Frigid, and you don't want to play a turn under Channel Lake Frigid if you're Dorinthea.
Yeah, one of my favorite things out of this deck is being able to play Channel Lake Frigid during my opponent's turn.
I love this hero, Tannen. I think it is such an actual step forward for the game, what this hero does. It's so different from everything else we've seen. So problematic to deal with. And now you see what we talked about, those priority windows are being used, and there's an opportunity for Alexander to respond here before this card even gets to have influence. Obviously, Dorinthea doing a lot. Your next attack gets plus values, but before that can even go down, Channel Lake Frigid going to be deployed, creating a Frostbite. Next spell going to cost 2. I believe that's a Spoils of War.
It's a Spoils of War,
yeah. Inside.
That means his next weapon attack is going to get pushed up and have go again, but we're going to see if that's even going to happen here this turn.
It's so expensive to activate Dawnblade. I do think Ryan has the option. You do see an energy potion in hand that, of course, is going to pitch for 3 should Ryan want to. So you might get the attack off, but what are you accomplishing? You're just not getting that far ahead, and Alexander continues to force damage, mess up your turns, just be generally annoying. Iyslander players are annoying, and I can say that because I think I'm just a fully committed Iyslander player at this point. I love playing this hero. I'm annoying too.
It does look like he's going to activate the Spring Tunic here before the other stuff comes in, so he gets the
Frostbite.
There you go. I think you can see it starting to get to Ryan a little bit. He's starting to realize this has just been a nightmare for me. Not only is this matchup going to be a little bit rough, but I think Alexander's hands have just been very good so far.
Very good. I agree with you. And that's not to say Icelander's hands aren't usually pretty good. It just does a lot of things very consistently. It'll always mess up your turn in some way. But there we see there is going to be an activation of this Dawnblade. 4 or 5, that's sizable.
Yeah, it's going to get pumped up from Spoils of War, so it's going to have +2 and go again.
Yep.
And if it hits this turn, it's going to make 2 coppers, which can be relevant if there's still, cash in Ryan's deck. This is a hero that, well, we don't use coppers too much, but maybe there's a version of it in there. Let's say I'm going to check the deck list real quick.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any cash-ins. You know, sometimes you can use them to filter, but in general, they'll just kind of sit there. That's not why you're playing these Spoils of War. You just need to go ahead and get that pump. And it looks like Alexander is going to take a little bit of damage here, and that makes sense. If Alexander does want to block, he wants to block the next instance of Dawnblade attacking. That is how Dawnblade accumulates counters. Of course, the Dory ability going to give that sword the option to attack again. Let's see if Ryan is able to make some headway here, start to get that Dawnblade a little bit bigger.
Yeah, this is his first real opportunity to get a forward momentum in this game.
Looks like Sharpened Steel going to be the play here. So Ryan maybe not only getting the second attack in with Dawnblade, but getting it a little bit larger as well.
So look at the resources going to be paid. How big is this next attack going to be? It's going to be for 6.
Yeah, and it would not shock me to see Alexander put a couple cards in front of this. Obviously wants to keep that Channel Lake Frigid alive on the next turn. Could potentially do so with something like a Coronet Peak. That would leave no Arsenal on the next turn. If you're Icelander, you always want to be playing with an Arsenal. It's a sticky situation right now. I think Ryan has put together his first big turn of the game.
Yeah, props to Ryan for finding a turn like this. It's actually putting Alex on the back foot, and this might be is this the beginning of him getting back in the game? This is the big part here.
I think there's a long way to go. I think
it's uphill for sure.
But this is the first salvo, the first time Ryan's deck has looked functional, and that's not to slight Ryan's deck. That's just to say what a good job Icelander has done controlling the game thus far.
Yeah, it looks like we're gonna have a Waning Moon activation. Ryan's gonna go ahead and take this. No floating resources, no cards in hand, so the coast is clear if you want to just burn through a bunch of damage here.
And that is one of the problems Ryan has to worry about, right? When that life total gets low, he's not going to be able to commit like that.
He's going to have so many problems if his life total gets low, because of reasons like that. If he doesn't have blues left over, he's going to have to keep one in his hand if he can.
And it looks like Alex is going to go ahead and take the damage here, and that means a +1 counter on Dawnblade. This is where things start to change, Tannen, because Dawnblade that attacks for 3 versus Dawnblade that attacks for 4, they're like 2 different Flesh and Blood cards, completely different impact on the game. And then once it attacks for 4, you're more likely to attack for 5 and then 6. And next thing you know, you have Uber yelling in your ear about how good Dory is as a hero.
Yeah, anyone who's ever got to play against Duskblade in a small amount of time being legal, you know how hard it can be when the weapons start getting bigger every turn. And this is just like a more fair version of that card. And
fair in quotation marks.
Yeah, fair. We're talking about fair in quotation marks, but this is what the hero is trying to do. Yeah, this is all that the deck does, and once you get up to 4, that's when it really starts to hum, because now you're at break points, and the block 3s don't really come into effect as much. For Alexander Vore, those on-hits start mattering. Yeah,
so Alex is going to go ahead and fire off an Ether Ice Vein here. I didn't catch if that was fused. Did you see if he revealed an ice card?
I didn't catch it either. I know there's an ice card in the pitch zone for the Channel Lake Frigid, so that's important here.
Yep, very important. Going to get that to stick around an additional turn. I think that was Alex's big goal going into this turn. You just want to keep that Channel Lake Frigid around as long as possible. It's going to be some Arcane Barrier here.
Yeah, it does look like we're going to hit some of the Arcane Barrier. I think Ryan did take a little bit of damage here. Maybe 1 leaked through. Yep, so it does look like there's the payment for the trigger.
Yeah, and we're going to head to Ryan's turn now. And Ryan desperately wants to hit with that Dawnblade, keep the counter on, keep the pressure on. That is the goal right now for Ryan Gentile.
Still a pretty positive turn for Alexander here, getting a little damage through. The Channel Lake Frigid is still around, and he has an Arsenal here, so he's back with a 4-card hand during our turn going into Ryan here. And Ryan's going to go ahead and just attack for 4 with the Dawnblade.
Yep. Does have the yellow pitch to go ahead and get that going. Now either demanding 2 cards from Alexander. You have to fear attack reactions when you're playing against Dory, and just because there's no resources doesn't mean they can't come out. Although in this case, Channel Lake Frigid does have your extra covered. So probably pretty safe here for Alexander. You know this is just an attack for 4.
Yeah, and if you're Ryan, you know that you're kind of stuck in this turn, right? That's kind of why he was very willing to trade some of his cards and to keep his life total a little bit higher while he wants to do that anyway. But this turn's still going to be stifled by that Channel Lake Frigid. He wasn't going to have a big, complicated attack turn anyway. So this is him just saying, look, I'll take my medicine, I'll keep my life total as high as I possibly can, and I'll get you next turn.
Yeah, I think there's another good case here for Alexander to line up some blocks and maybe get those counters or that counter off of the Dawnblade. Should still be able to make a pretty good offensive salvo, even if he has to commit some cards to this Dawnblade. Going to go ahead and fire off an Insidious Chill from Arsenal. That is going to go ahead and create that Frostbite. Guarantee there will be no action from Ryan this turn. Of course, though, Insidious Chill could further tax resources from Ryan Gentile. Should there be any Ice Fusion, that's going to force a discard unless 2 resources are paid.
And now you're seeing Alexander, multiple ways taxing his opponent with Ryan here. These Frostbites are coming out. They've already been wreaking havoc. And now you're seeing that he's actually stripping cards from Ryan's hand as well on these turns with these, these spells that do it, with these on-board effects that do it as well whenever you fuse like you've seen here. And this is going to present real problems for Ryan from multiple fronts.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with Dawnblade, the way it works is you have to deal damage to your opponent every turn. If you do not, you lose your counter. Now that counter is off the Dawnblade. As we said, Dawnblade doing 3 damage, very different from Dawnblade doing 4 damage. So that's a big win from Alexander Vore. And you might say, oh, Alexander had no turn. How could that be a win? Well, we're back to our turn now as we move to Ryan's turn, and Alexander has options, has that arsenal loaded up. Ryan does have a nice full hand here, so hasn't really made it through too many turns with the full 4 grip. I see a twinning blade at the ready should he have to go ahead and get a little wide on this turn. So if the defenses are down from Alexander Vore, maybe we could see a little damage. Looks like we're going to start things as we often do as Dory, Dawnblade attack.
Absolutely, and like you said, he's got technically a 4-card hand here. He's got 2 resources floating. He's got 3 cards in his hand and that arsenal. So we'll see how big of an attack this actually is, because it's never just 3.
Yeah, and there we see.
That one has got too much glare on it for me.
I think that's a run-through, I'm pretty sure.
I think you might be right here. So this is going to have go again. It's going to have a +2. Yeah, that looks like a run-through.
Yeah, run-through, another one of those cards coming out of the classic battle set. Sword attack gains go again. Next sword attack gains +2. So
that's why you have it over to the side. Yeah.
Not only getting this a little bit wider, but also potentially representing some more damage further down the turn. A nice response here from Alexander Vore. It is going to be Oasis Respite.
Yep, and that's going to fully resolve, says Ryan here.
One of the best cards against Dory, by the way, Oasis Respite.
I like to point at that sword, that one.
Good choice.
Yeah, good choice. One of my favorite cards in all of Flesh and Blood, my favorite art, is Twinning Blade. So I'm excited to possibly see it this turn. The alternate art Twinning Blade, the promo one, probably my favorite card in the game.
Beautiful, beautiful card. Going to go ahead and follow up here with the Stroke of Foresight. That's going to go ahead and add 3 to that attack, trying to get some damage through.
Yeah, this is, I think, still after the Oasis. Yeah, this is an attack reaction. Okay, so we're still attacking in for 6 here.
Correct. And it looks like Alexander reaching for the pen, going to take the damage. That's important. Going to let that sword attack a second time. We do know the Twinning Blade is available, but may have to be committed to resources here.
Yeah, this next attack is going to be for even more as well, because the second attack this turn is going to have +2. So it looks like the +2 is going to come in along with this. So this is go again. So this is going to be 8 now. Maybe I spoke too soon. Hold on. Yeah, it's only 5. Okay. Oh, because it goes to the base power again up to 5, right?
Correct.
It's a single attack at +3. I apologize.
It resets, so we're back to 5.
This is the thing with Dory. I always have to ask, how much is this one? How much is that one? How much is the next one? Because some of them affect for the turn. Some of them only affect per attack.
Correct. Correct. You got to stay on top of that. Alexander, though, thinking about a block, looking to try and keep that +1 counter off of the Dawnblade. Does he want to commit 2 cards here? Does he have 2 cards to commit?
Still got a piece of equipment here as well if he wants to maybe float a resource, play the card out of his arsenal, and then maybe block with the last card as well. A couple options for him here.
Yeah, and I think that one of those cards in hand might be a Sigil of Solace. So,
ooh, that's not good for blocking.
No block value on that. Yeah. Could go ahead and potentially pitch it to fuel those Ironhide gauntlets.
I think he's thinking about that. It looked like he was lining up possibly a block and then that as well, maybe trying to keep that +1 counter off it and that life total high.
Like I said, Tan, as soon as the counters accumulate, it's a problem. It's like Coronet Peak's going to be the block here, though. Wants to keep that sizzle. You could understand why. I mean, 3 life in this matchup, very, very valuable.
Absolutely, and I don't know if the Peak's going to get activated anymore this game as well.
Yeah, I think Peak is like, on average, I would say you activate Coronet Peak half a time a game.
Sure.
It's still excellent.
Half a time, okay.
You're still so excited to have it in your deck, but a lot of it is for the block value. It's just a nice free block there, and you see how important it was. It is just going to be Sigil of Solace on Alexander Vore's turn.
Yep, going up to 23. Still got a card in his arsenal here as well, still threatening that Insidious Shield. So the first time a priority goes back over to Alexander here, we might see Fireworks.
Interesting. It's the same card as we had on the last turn. So for whatever reason, Alexander didn't want to deploy it then. Maybe it can't be. Maybe it's not blue. That's always a possibility.
That would be... I don't know if he would get himself in a situation like that, right? That's something you want to try to avoid if you can.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to.
Yes, sometimes you have to. Sometimes the advantage, like if you put a solid red in there that's just representing damage, I think that could also be completely fine. But
I think this is a sort of a possibly big turn. This is a Steel Blade Supremacy here. This is the Dorinthea specialization. So this is one of the ones I was joking about.
End of turn. This is still end of turn.
Right.
So
this one's very important.
Yeah. +2, and whenever this hits, draw a card. This is where a lot of Dory's big turns come from.
This is really scary because you see there's 2 resources floating here as well this turn, plus 2 more cards in the hand, because I believe that's a hit and run as well behind this.
So we've got Go Again now. This weapon's going to have Go Again.
And this is second. Let's let them do the math. This is stacking for 5 with Go Again.
But it's never just 5. Like, you have to fear so much on Alexander's turn.
And this is the hardest block in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because if you block for just 5 here, and Ryan has any attack reaction, any reprise effect or anything like that, this turn might get huge.
I'm tempted to give this attack 3 cards. And you can still get blown out on that scenario. It's not completely safe. But if you can stonewall this attack, stop the Go Again.
Block for 8, something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's still so risky. But I think letting this damage hit, Ryan just gets to pick up a card. And we see Ryan's hand. It's an Oasis Respite and maybe a Steel Blade Supremacy is the last card. Or it could actually, no, it's an Iron Song response. Okay. So that's strictly a pitch card. So Ryan really needs this to hit here. I mean, I shouldn't say strictly a pitch card. I think he would prefer to pitch that should it be the blue version. It may be a red. Maybe it is a red, actually, Tan. And that could make a wide block very problematic if you just happen to push it right over the threshold with +3.
And yeah, here we go. We got a block from an equipment here. So 2 resources are floating. And let's see, are there going to be blocks from hand as well? Nope. It looks like we're going to let this go over.
Still could be Oasis Respite.
Right. There could be a defensive reaction.
Defense reaction also on the table.
So we might see, yeah, let's say we see an Oasis here.
Yeah, and that's going to try and clean this up. Now that does a good job of playing around this Iron Song response, actually. This was such a critical block from Alexander because Iron Song response relies on reprise. It does nothing unless defending hero has defended a card with a card from their hand. So using those Ironhide gauntlets in that spot and blocking with Oasis Respite, it was the perfect block from Alexander. Alexander would have gotten blown up there with any other block. Huge swing in his favor.
Might be the turning point of the entire game here.
Absolutely. That was a big play. That could just look like a very simple block should you not know the intricacies of the matchup or Ryan's hand, but I think that was actually everything.
Speaking of Ryan's hand, he's about to have a lot less cards here. This is a Chilling Ice Fade with a fuse. This is going to also trigger the Insidious Chill as well.
Yeah. And so that's going to threaten to take 2 cards away from Ryan's hand. And I believe that was from Arsenal. Is that correct, Tannen? So
I think
that
it was
the card that was stashed for multiple turns. And you see why it's an interesting decision, because just giving up on having that card in Arsenal means your damage output is so dramatically decreased. And look at how big this swing is now. The tempo is huge here. Despite the fact that Alexander had to play with no disruption, it was a scary few turns, but Alexander navigated it very well.
What a swingy 2 turns here. You just alluded to. I thought Ryan was going to start putting himself firmly in the driver's seat last turn with this setup of a huge turn. Like, that was his turn. Like, this is his turn of the game where he's like, I'm going to start winning from here. And Alexander Vore was up to the task, found the right line of playing around the reprise effects of any of the attack reactions, gets out of it, and then just has a turn this powerful behind it as well.
Beautiful play.
This feels like a Starvo turn.
Yeah, I mean, this is big. 2 cards from hand being threatened. 5 damage. Ether Ice Vein getting more and more popular in these Icelander decks. Most decks playing 9 copies now, and you understand why. It's just such a nightmare to play around.
It's something to be said about having a good card to play on your own turn.
Yeah, it matters. It matters. You want to. The best Icelanders will be maximizing both parts of their turn. A nice response, though, here from Ryan. Going to go ahead and deploy Oasis Respite, gain a life, prevent 4, and has the Arcane Barrier ready to go. So
all the damage taken away.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth here. Really big swings defensively from both players thus far.
Yeah, both these players have been asking extremely hard questions of their opponent and asking a lot of them, and they have been up to the task every time. This has been one hell of a game.
I didn't know what to expect coming into this matchup. Like I said, I'm very familiar with both these heroes, but this is one I haven't practiced all that much. It's really interesting. There's a lot of intricacies going on, and I kind of just thought it might be a little one-sided. That has not proven to be the case, though.
So in response to the activation of Spring Tunic here, we're going to have a card play from Arsenal that's an ice card is going to create
an
a frostbite.
Amulet of Ice.
I couldn't see that with the glare.
Yeah,
it looks like an Amulet of Ice.
So that's actually doing nothing here. All that's doing is creating a frostbite. Not the best Arsenal. Now, there is huge threat on future turns with that Insidious Chill and Amulet of Ice ready to go. Could always threaten 2 cards anytime you fuse, but it's not going to help a lot on this turn. And let's see if Ryan can produce some fireworks here.
All right, it looks like he's going to start off with this Dawnblade tech. Had to pay a little extra here. I think he's only got 1 card left in his hand, but he does have 2 resources floating.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see too much from Ryan here. I think we may still be looking at that same reprise card from the last turn. So let's see if it's able to better push some damage here. I think this is just a pure damage turn. I don't expect a particularly wide setup from Ryan on this turn.
Yeah, this might even just be an Arsenal turn after this as well to set up possibly for a big one the next turn, but you got to be a little worried, like you said, about that Insidious Chill and Amulet of Ice going into a bunch of cards from Alexander Vore. You know, I just gotta say it again. You and I coming into this were both a little unfamiliar with this matchup. You know, we haven't seen it a ton. You know, Icelander just starting to really, really gain in popularity recently, and Dorinthea has lost a lot of popularity recently as well.
You say that. I agree broadly, but I think in the last 3 to 4 weeks, really in the post-Prism age, we're starting to see Dory pick up more and more share. And Dory has some good matchups out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, but, you know, over the last year, we haven't seen a lot of Dory.
True.
And she's starting to, you know, get back in the limelight. The Warriors are starting to come back out. The Brutes are starting to come back out. You know, some of the original heroes from Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see these matchups that we haven't seen in quite a while, and this one has just been living up to being a great match.
Yeah, as you predicted, just an Arsenal here from Ryan. Amulet of Ice, Insidious Chill, very threatening. Just going to go ahead and deploy a second Insidious Chill on his turn is Alexander Vore. And that means when we start fusing things, there's going to be fireworks. Ryan is just going to lose his grip.
And it does look like this is going to be a pass here after an Arsenal from Alexander Vore. I wonder if this is something that does have the potential of possibly being, you know, being able to strip a bunch of cards from Ryan's hand. We'll see.
What is that card in Arsenal? That is the question here. Should it be something that could be fused on Alexander's side? That could be a huge, huge swing, just completely decimate Ryan's hand.
I think I see a Fabled in Alexander's hand.
A lot of these Icelanders will play Heart of Fyendel. I think that's exactly what we're looking at here. So good to gain that life.
All right, here we go. Priority back over to Alexander for the first time. Dawnblade is attacking you for 3 in quotations here. But let's see what happens. And do we have any responses from Alexander Vore here? The potential of a big pop-off turn here.
Yeah, I see a Glint, the Quicksilver in hand. Maybe a Singing Steelblade.
I think I see a Singing Steelblade, yeah.
Dorinthea Specialization, so could be some fireworks if Alexander Vore doesn't have a card ready to be fused sitting there in Arsenal.
I think the last one was another stroke of foresight as well.
Yeah, so a lot of ways to really increase the damage output here. We are going to go ahead and see the Glint, the Quicksilver come down.
Yep, so this weapon is going to have go again, as you see. No reprise effect here, though.
Yeah, you're fine with that. Glint to Quicksilver is just the tool to get a little wider. It's the second attack where we might see fireworks. This is where Ryan really, really wants to get that counter back on the Dawnblade, start playing that 4-power game. And the fact that we didn't see anything from Alexander Vore's arsenal here leads me to believe it may not be anything playable. It might just be another red card. I mean, a second red Ether Ice Vein would be devastating from Alexander Vore on the next turn. Would just have to survive here and would basically leave Ryan with no options. So I think that's totally reasonable. Going to line up a pretty big block here. It looks like a block.
It's a double block here.
Yeah, I don't remember if Brain Freeze is block 2 or block 3. Oh, that's Cold Snap, excuse me. That is a block 2. So that is going to be a block for 5 on the side of Alexander Vore.
Yeah, this leads me to believe that there is going to be something in his own turn as well out of that arsenal, possibly. You know, maybe setting up a really big end of turn effect here, but
is that Cold Snap or is it Brain Freeze? I think I was right the first time.
I think it's a Brain Freeze. I'm not sure. It's really hard to tell with these with the little bit of the glare. These players with these their beautiful foiled out decks can sometimes give us a little bit of problems here.
Yeah, I have revised my opinion. I think it is a Brain Freeze. I think this is a block for 6. So let's see if Ryan could find a way to push damage over the top of this. As we mentioned, Singing Steelblade, this is a big one coming down here for Ryan. This is going to allow Ryan to go ahead and take a look through the deck and find even better options.
Yep, he's going to have to go find a 0, most likely. So since Reprise is triggered because the defending heroes defended with a card from their hand in the chain link, you can search your deck for an attack reaction card, banish it face up, shuffle your deck, and you can play it this turn.
And look what it is. It's that Iron Song response coming down for 0, adding +3 to this Dawnblade attack, making it look like we are going to get a little damage through. At least right now, we're representing 7 on the attack. Does Alexander Vore have anything else rolled up? Is there more coming from Ryan out of Arsenal?
So yeah, right now this is attacking for 7, like you said. So this is getting a damage through. So it is going to trigger the Dawnblade.
And that's big.
That's, so 1 gets through.
We're back to a counter now, and that means we're playing 4 damage on the next turn. If
we have cards left over.
If we have cards left over. And
yeah.
if Alexander Vore is just ready to fuse here, you're not going to have any cards. And it's such a weird spot where like you live in fear of Dawnblade accumulating that counter, but it is very possible that it just doesn't matter. Alexander Vore with a lot of options to strip cards here.
Yeah, one of those cards being that Fabled. Oh, this looks like his hand was just not very good this turn. So he's going to gain 3 here. He's still got the Fabled in his hand as well. And I wonder what the card in that arsenal is, if it's playable or not.
Passes. That's dangerous. This is
if you're
real
Ryan,
dangerous.
You just took a huge sigh of relief.
Absolutely. This is the first time in this match that I've felt Alexander Vore is actually in some real danger. I think it's possible if Ryan just snowballs here, able to connect twice with that Dawnblade, 2 solid attacks, then Alexander better find that disruption quick because he's going to be facing down a lot of damage on the part of Dawnblade.
Yeah, I see a twinning blade in the hand there. Let's see how big or wide of a turn Ryan could have here, because Alexander's already shown that maybe the card in his arsenal isn't very good or can be played this turn. We'll have to see during Ryan's turn. So we'll see.
Twinning blade, of course, very good at getting you an additional attack should your first attack not hit.
Okay, so it does look like he could play the card out of the arsenal. So here we go. This is big. That's a Channel Lake Frigid.
Okay.
This is huge. This is going to tax Ryan a lot this turn.
But Ryan started this turn off with a good pitch. Started off with a Time Snap Potion pitch. So it's possible, should it be a blue-heavy hand, just able to force through some extra damage. But still, you do have the problem of 4 damage heading your way. And if this hits, it may not get additional counters, but all Dawnblade has to do is hit once, and it will retain its counters on the next turn. And that's really what Alexander Vore would like to prevent at this point. Love to get that +1 counter off.
So this attack for 4 is still going on. We're still responding to the Frostbite and the Channel Lake Frigid happening here. So let's see what does Ryan have in store for us.
And I'm almost hesitant to point this out, Tannen, but I want to draw your attention to that clock, top right corner. 18 minutes left. We've used 30 approximately of our 50. 18 left, and these life totals are still pretty high.
So it does look like the 4 is going to get through, and that's going to be it for the turn for Ryan here. So he's going to draw only 1 card here at the end of turn.
Hate to see that, but it can happen sometimes with Dory. These are the fireworks we've been waiting for.
You see the shake of the head from Ryan here, the nod. He's like, yep.
Remember how I said I was worried for Alexander Vore? I'm not worried anymore. This is the huge swing we've been waiting for. A fused Ether Ice Vein representing 4 discards on this turn. Now, of course, you can play around that. You can pitch a little bit. If you happen to have a very blue-heavy hand, maybe you can make it through with a card. And I think that's the best-case scenario for Ryan at this point. But what a turnaround here from Alexander Vore.
Yeah, and this is the turn we've been kind of alluding to and worried about for Ryan. This is the nightmare scenario for him. How many cards is he going to make it out of with this turn, or will he even have cards left over into his own turn? We'll have to see. All right, so he's going to pay the 2 for one of them. Pay for the next one. He's got a lot of blues.
Okay.
All right, now the damage is coming through, and if that one hits, that's another card. So it looks like that damage is going to get through, bring Ryan down to 12. He's going to pay the 2 there, so he's going to get to keep the cards.
Yeah.
Hey, 2 cards in an arsenal. Pretty good for Ryan.
I mean, I think given the level of threat he was facing on this turn, that's really big. I will say, however, though, Tannen, threat's not over. We didn't even use Amulet of Ice there, holding it for a future turn. Both those Insidious Chills are still there. So if we just find another fusion card, things are just as bad for Ryan on the next turn.
Not to mention Arsenal here for Alexander Vore as well. He's got a 3 on his Tunic, and that Channel Lake Frigid, is still sitting around.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's big. So this is an attack for 4 from this Dawnblade. The Twinning Blade used for some resources here. Going to go ahead and pay for the extra resource.
Yeah, no go again on that attack thus far. So let's see if Alexander wants to put some blocks in front. That could always change. Things always subject to change when we're talking Dory. Looks like a little hypothermia going to be used to deploy a Frost Hex. That's going to give a Frostbite and make Frostbites way more threatening for the rest of the game.
Yeah, now there is 3 on the Tunic here, so there is an extra resource possible here. And this does look like a Sink Below.
Sink Below, perfect block here. going to prevent all 4 of this damage, unless Ryan has an effect. He does, of course. Iron Song response, going to get through, push 3 more damage, is able to pitch to pay for that.
And this is really important, too, because it's going to help if this does resolve and happen to get damage here. It's going to keep that counter on the Dawnblade. And as you see, this is a problem for Alexander Vore. He can't trade 1 card for blocks against the Dawnblade.
Like I said, 4-power Dawnblade versus 3-power Dawnblade. They're not the same Flesh and Blood card. Completely different scenario.
Both players at 12, digging through their decks. What a game so far. We're so close to the end of it from each player here. Alexander Vore, another amulet and just a pass.
Yeah, again, tremendous threat on any fusion here. Should that be a fusible card in Arsenal?
And if it's not, Ryan's going to get a full 4-card hand here and no Channel Lake Frigid.
Yeah, that could be big. What is the last card available for Alexander Vore from Arsenal? That's always the question when it comes to Icelander. That's where all the threat comes from on your opponent's turn. At least once those Storm Striders are cracked, which we saw very early on in this game.
All right, he's going to start the turn off with, hey, do you have a response here? I'm going to activate my Tunic.
Yep, going to get that resource floating.
Yeah. Love seeing that from Ryan. He's like, I want the information as early as possible.
And this is an opportunity for Alexander to go ahead, possibly trigger those disruption effects. Threaten lethal. That's always on the table.
Yeah, threaten lethal? Yeah, I was about to say, there's all kinds of stuff he could be doing from here, yeah.
Yeah, once you have Frost Hex, you're able to kill your opponent for much higher life totals. The threat increases dramatically at that point. Should there ever be an Ice Eternal in Arsenal, things get very sticky for Ryan. What a great first game, Tannen. I think this is so representative of what Flesh and Blood is at this moment of time. The metagame's so wide open, so many interesting, intricate matchups that reward player skills so much. I'm so happy with the state of the classic constructed metagame right now, and this match has exhibited exactly why.
I've heard so many veteran players of Flesh and Blood, people that have been around for the years, talking about this might be one of their favorite metas of all time, like 1 or 2.
Agreed.
The fact that it's just super wide open, so many of the heroes are representable here. And I gotta agree with it. I like it both ways. You know, we had the kind of the 3-hero meta with Starvo, and I loved it from a coverage perspective and like from a metagaming perspective. And then I like this as well, where it's super wide open. We just get to see so many cool things get represented.
Another high threat card here from Ryan Gentile. It's Steel Blade Supremacy coming down, threatening to both pump that Dawnblade for the rest of the turn. So Dawnblade, by default, attacking for 6 now.
So much alliteration is very hard on the talking sometimes here.
Especially for me. You know how my tongue is prone to getting tied.
I'm a big fan of alliteration, by the way.
Me too. When I'm designing Flesh and Blood cards, I am often physically restrained from making every single one have alliteration.
Humble brag. When I'm designing the game.
Look, someone's got to do it. Yeah. Someone's got to put these cards together. It's mostly James White, but I give him a little assist every now and then. Also, the incredible
you rein him back in every now and then?
It often works the opposite way.
I'm sure.
Also, the incredible dev team down there in New Zealand. Shout out to my homies. I know they're all watching today. Excited to see this beautiful metagame they've created. You know, this predates my involvement with designing Flesh and Blood. All credit to them, none to me.
This really bodes well for Worlds as well in a few months.
And look at this from Arsenal. Here we
go.
Just like we talked about, Ice Eternal. And Alexander throwing a mess of resources into it. Looks like 7 ? Leaving 1 floating. Going to go ahead and do a little fusion here. That is going to threaten the hand now.
I was going to say, give me this grip.
Yep. This is both threatening damage and the hand. Of course, should this Ice Eternal resolve, we're looking at 3 Frostbites. That in culmination with that Frost Hex. All kinds of damage all over the place threatened from Alexander Vore. And Ryan, I think, looking to potentially respond to this Ice Eternal. Going to do a little pitching. Dealing with the first Insidious Chill, I believe. Just desperate to make it through with some resources, some way to keep this attack going. Maybe find a Dawnblade hit. But Alexander senses this is the moment where I really have to mess up Ryan's turn. Is going to go ahead, crack that Amulet of Ice, which, by the way, was very disciplined with on a previous turn. Could have used it, held it for this key moment. And couldn't agree more. I think with that Steel Blade Supremacy being threatened, with the counter on Dawnblade, take away Ryan's hand. Do not let him get up to anything. And the Steel Blade Supremacy created the perfect window for this response, able to go ahead and do anything before Ryan was able to push that Dawnblade forward.
Yep, last card's going to go away. It's going to have a resource floating here.
Yep. One final resource. Yeah, that's the problem. That Frostbite is going to go ahead and doom Ryan's turn. If it wasn't for that, you could have potentially made some headway. But, of course, there's 3 more behind that by virtue of Ice Eternal. That's going to offer some damage right now. One of it's going to be prevented, but 3 more headed Ryan's way. And we know those Frostbites spell trouble when we hit the end of the turn due to that Frost Hex over on Ryan's side.
This is a Waning Moon activation as well. Ryan is going to almost die here.
Down to 2.
Lethal.
And against Iyslander at 2, your life is miserable.
Yeah, every card kills you.
That Waning Moon
Yeah.
pops off at any point, and I think that was the moment Alexander was waiting for. What a beautifully played game. Honestly, on both sides, I think this has been such an interesting matchup, but Alexander showing patience, showing the right blocks at key moments, and you can't say enough about the play here.
Yep, Arsenal Pass is going to be the play here, and Ryan has to know that at any point in time in which he plays a card here,
could just die.
He very well might die.
Yep.
And you might even see Alexander let him play a couple cards out here. He's like, get the cards out your hand. Get the cards out your hand.
Yep.
All right. In response, kill you. All right, so Channel Lake Frigid here.
Yeah, so if you want to do anything, you have to invest basically your whole hand, and then I'll just kill you with Waning Moon. What are you going to do about it? Nightmare scenario for Ryan. And I think I see some resignation over on Ryan's side at this point.
Yeah, so Waning Moon's going to be threatening lethal during turn, and then we're going to go back over to Alex's turn. If he has anything with to play during his own turn of damage, it's going to be too much.
Yep. And there's the pay. But all that means is 1 resource floating, 1 in hand, 6 being offered with go again from this Dawnblade. So a nice attack, but so many options over on Alexander's side. You know that Moon's coming at some point. You just have to keep cards in hand. You can't pitch low.
So let's see how Alexander wants to play this. It looks like he's going to actually probably block with 2
Absolutely.
cards. Yeah.
Absolutely. Throw those cards in front right now. I think that's totally fine. Activate your Moon, get the last card.
He's even got a Tunic sitting around. If he doesn't take this counter, the third counter's going to be on this. He's got an extra life sewed up in that Tunic as well that he could block with.
Yeah, really good spot for Alexander here. I could even see a smaller block here. I think that's totally acceptable because you're pretty confident that Ryan can't deploy that last card in hand because he'll just die.
Yeah, he'll just die immediately. Yeah.
So like maybe you block 3, take 3. Even though that attack has go again, it's not going to matter. There's not going to be a second attack, or maybe no blocks. I think Alexander may have just passed there.
Well, looks like he's going to go ahead and take the 6 down to 6.
Yeah, and now you put Ryan in a position to make a mistake. If you want to go for it, you could try. You're just dead.
Yeah. If you play a card here, you will die.
Yep. Yeah, Ryan is just going to have to move to Arsenal or face the wrath of the Waning Moon. Yeah, just going to move to Arsenal. Ryan astutely snuffed it out. But that means Alexander with 3 cards in hand can offer some damage on this turn, backed up by Waning Moon, take all the cards from Ryan's hand, and then go ahead and just blow him up.
Draw back up to 4, yep. As we'll say.
It's a huge amount of threat that Alexander is presenting at this point in time. In conjunction with that Channel Lake Frigid, by the way.
I think this is 5 Arcane as well, so I don't know if Ryan can even stop this much out of his deck.
Is that a red Ice Bolt? I'm pretty sure
I think it is.
Yeah, so just representing sizable chunk of damage here. Could be backed up by that Waning Moon, of course. So it really depends how resource-heavy Ryan's hand is at this point. Yeah, it may have just been a blue Ice Bolt. Looks like no damage got through there, so...
Yeah, hard to tell from here. I think it is a blue, actually, the more I see it down there.
Yep.
It looks like the life totals did not change.
But very similar position for Ryan now. You need to generate offense. You cannot ever go to no cards in hand because you will die.
Going down to 1 card if it's like only a red or whatever is really scary too. If he has a blue, he pretty much can't play it.
Yep. It's an interesting spot. At some point, you may just have to be like, well, if there's a card in Arsenal, I lose the game. So I just need to go for it here. That makes sense to me.
2 cards pitched because of the Channel Lake Frigid. It does look like another Ice Bolt out of and there's the nod from Ryan.
That's just going to be too much arcane damage. There's no way Ryan has enough arcane barrier to go ahead and prevent that. And that is going to get the fist bump, and we are going to see Alexander Vore move on to 4-0 on the back of Iyslander.
And wow, what a game. That's all I'm going to say here.